Welcome to Sound the Horne Sports Show. I'm so excited to host this groundbreaking program that will broaden the Jackson sports scene's awareness regionally and nationally. My goal is to highlight sports in Jackson, the state of Mississippi, and nationally by utilizing my 25 years of Division I athletic administration knowledge, and my guests will be experienced leaders in sports. The guests on the show will share a behind-the-scenes, unique, and informative glance of the world of sports. Please join me every Monday and Friday from 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. on WeBelieveDigital.com. Welcome to the Sound the Horne Sports Show. I'm so glad to have a good friend of mine here from Jackson State, Mr. Duane Lewis, the Associate AD for Public Relations and Sports Media. How you doing, Duane?
Doing well, Derek. Glad to be on with you finally. I know you've been trying this for a while. Glad it all worked out.
Now, how does all that title get on a business card?
They found a way, about 10-point font and bring the letters in really tight. But I've seen longer, though. But honored to be here, honored to have that title and the responsibility of being here at Jackson State University. Yeah,
well, in our first quarter, what we're trying to do is talk with our guests and ask a little bit about them. So if you would, maybe just kind of share with our guests your hometown, the high school that you went to, and maybe some of the activities that you were involved in high school.
Okay. Originally from Plaquemine, Louisiana, which is about 15 minutes south of Baton Rouge. Grew up going to schools in Plaquemine, obviously, but moved to Baton Rouge with my mother prior to my junior year of high school and finished at Woodlawn High School in Baton Rouge. Had a little bit of a jump shot. Back in the day, played some high school basketball. Defense was more my thing, but enjoyed playing basketball and played summer baseball. I really enjoyed baseball. My great-grandfather he loved baseball. Never missed the Astros game on the radio. And we going back to late 70s, early 80s. So grew up listening to a lot of baseball, and that's how my love for sports grew, really from that point on, reading the newspaper every morning with him, reading the sports pages, and became a love affair that somehow, through now being 50, I cannot get away from.
Well, you made me think about going back in my when I was younger. There was a gentleman, his name was Mr. Johnny Lane, and he had an old Zenith radio on the carport. Yeah. And when the Brave game would come on, he'd cut it up all the way, and we'd sit around listening to it. And I think I always tell people athletes learn through visualization. Yes. And just listening to those sports, and I'm pretty sure when you listened, there were some things that really just resonated with you on I'm going to try this when I go out and play. Now, you talked about basketball. When you were in high school, who were some of the teams that you played against, and maybe some players that were some of the better players that you had a chance to participate against?
Like Downsonville was really strong in our district. McKinley and Baton Rouge has always been a power. Actually, my best friends, LeBeta James, became my best friend in college after we played against each other in high school. Zachary was really strong in that area because they really merged kind of the River Parishes area. Tim Bro was a phenomenal athlete on those teams. Michael Robinson from the Zachary team. We had some phenomenal athletes in that district, and every night you had to be ready to play.
In position with baseball, did you play baseball in high school?
Did not.
Didn't? Okay.
Did not.
Well, when you played, what was your best or your favorite position?
Favorite position? Boy, that's a great question. Probably shortstop. Didn't have the best arm, but probably had the best range and anticipation. Again, great-grandfather taught me all the nuances of the game, was really skilled enough to play every position. Not really maybe great in any, but solid in all. Just wanted to be on the field. Didn't matter where. Eventually made my way behind the plate, doing a little bit of catching. And that was probably the most fun because you're involved in every pitch. But certainly enjoyed guys I grew up with playing against. It was always added fun when you played against family, played against your cousins. Never wanted to strike out against your cousins. So some great times and great memories just playing youth baseball growing up.
I thought about, because I played first base, played outfield. I had pretty good speed and length for first base. Yeah. So I was in practice one day, and I told the coach I want to try and catch.
Ooh.
Never again.
Never again.
Because, you're trying to watch that batter. You're trying to concentrate on the ball. It's so many things that are going on when that ball is coming. Yeah. That I really respect the person that can get behind that plate and catch that ball.
Yeah, a lot of concentration with that, as you mentioned, a lot of nuances to the game, and every play is something different based on if a runner's on base, what base they're on, what the count is. Almost like being a linebacker, if you will, say in football, because you're trying to manage everything that's coming at you or try to anticipate what's coming at you. Yeah.
When you were in high school, maybe tell us what you would call maybe one of your most memorable moments playing high school basketball.
Oh man, I think it was two. It's probably when we beat McKinley the second time we played, was the first time our high school had beat McKinley, because they had been a dominant program and one of the great programs in South Louisiana. But also we had a win against Port Allen when my teammate hit a shot from half court to win it. We were down 2 in the last 50 seconds. He just went back and forth, and he caught it and let it fly, and it went in. And it's great to have a last-second win like that. One of those things you don't forget. Yeah. Just to have the exhilaration of what winning is, just really playing to the buzzer. And that was a lot of fun. Those two really stand out.
Yeah, Coach, tell us a little bit about your high school coach.
Kenny Allman was a great guy. He was the guy that finished high school playing with. Keith Hill was the coach I played for initially, and he was a defensive guy. Saw the defense. We would drill defense probably for an hour and a half of that 2-hour practice. So that helped me when I got to Woodlawn with Coach Allman. Two men that really were focused on winning, but obviously developing the young man that was inside. And one of the things that I really, to this day, keep from Coach Allman is that when I get on you, I'm getting on the player and not the person. And that really stood out. As you know, when you get in leadership, those characteristics come back because people think it's personal. It's really not. It's about the overall goal we're trying to attain for the university, for the student athletes. And that's something that really stood out with me. Just focus on, and usually what we try to reemphasize now, there's more in you, which is why we're having this conversation. There's more talent, there's more ability that you can show, but it's not coming out. How do we get that out? So that's one of the things that really stood out for me with the lesson that he taught us even 30, 35 years ago.
And the reason I ask that, particularly with guests, there's so much that we learned when we were younger. I'm a little older than you, but my high school coach meant a lot.
Yes.
That's not happening now.
Right.
And really it's not even going to the next level, because I think that what we have to realize, these minds are just shaping. As we can go back and think about, we wouldn't make those decisions that we made at 25 now.
Correct.
At 18 now.
No doubt.
And I think what we're looking at and what we're dealing with is how do we put ourselves in a position to be those leaders, as you said, and input something in them. So when you're talking to them, I'm not talking at the person. I'm talking about you as a teammate or team or player, and I call them teachable moments too. And if you can find a way to wrap in those teachable moments, it's so powerful.
Absolutely.
Other than your coach, who were some of the other people? And you talked about it was your great-grandfather?
Great-grandfather, yeah.
Who were some of the other people in your community that kind of shaped and molded who you are?
Well, certainly my parents, my mom, my dad were always around and always there. And if my great-grandfather was the skill in terms of work ethic, my mother was the will. She always talked about being successful. You were going to college, you're going to graduate, and things I wasn't even thinking about at 10 or 11 became common at 17 and 18. My dad just steadying influence in terms of just the support, just being there. Because what I realize now, and I know we're going to cover a lot of different topics as we go forward, the male presence is missing with a lot of the athletes that we deal with now. And that makes it more challenging for coaches. And I think I have a greater appreciation now for them being around, because there's tough conversations that male coaches have to have with male athletes. And again, what we just talked about, getting on the athlete in you, not the person. But unfortunately, society has taught them that we're challenging your manhood. And having that background from a family standpoint, really having a close-knit family, close-knit community of about 8,000 people, there were a lot of coaches in the community. They weren't coaching at the school, but they were coaching in the community. They would have youth leagues to help keep us out of trouble during the summer months, and really became mentors on just teaching us the fundamentals of being better athletes, which led to us being better people.
And I think that's something that we're missing, and you mentioned it, the youth leagues and the things that you would do, and the presence of the male presence. We as men, we're going to have to put ourselves in a position and sometimes get out of our feelings and find a way to connect with our young people. And the challenges we run into, to me, are we want them to listen like we learned, but they learn in a different way.
Correct.
And we have to find a way to communicate to them. And we'll get to Coach Prime in our last quarter, but I tell people the reason he's resonating with people, he's speaking their language.
Correct. Yes.
And we have to find a way to speak their language and also give them tough love in a way.
Yes.
Because I tell people this, and particularly when I'm managing, I say, emotions and feelings ain't on your job description.
Correct.
We got to find a way to get past that.
Right.
But it's that nurturing that we got at a younger age that we're missing out on, and we got to find a way to pull that back in.
Absolutely.
Now, being in Plaquemine, you might not believe this. I've been to Plaquemine before.
Okay.
So I know where it is. Been there.
All right.
What was the deciding factor for you to choose Southern to go to college?
Southern had been a part of my family as long as I could remember. I had an uncle and aunt that never missed a home game, and usually at least once a year I would go. So it was a part of the fabric of growing up. When I moved, however, to Baton Rouge, I had teachers that would talk a lot more about LSU and the communications field and things of that nature. And I was actually probably headed to LSU until about 6 weeks before graduation, and went to high school senior day at Southern's campus. I had grown up on the campus, had gone to the Summer Engineering Institute, so I kind of had a Southern experience in high school, was kind of looking for something different. But that Friday, I'll never forget it, it just felt like home with 1,000 other young men and women like myself getting ready to graduate from high school. It just felt like home. And certainly was the right decision, tremendous experience there. And from day one, it was like home. And now 27 years out of college, it still feels like home.
And the reason I ask it, I always like to ask, because there's something that draws, when we're coming out of high school, there's something that, we think we won't, but until we experience it, it makes a big difference. And, I tell people a lot of times, during my recruiting, I went a number of places. But I had a chance to go, and when I went to Ole Miss on my visit, I didn't go on the weekend. I went the middle of the week. Okay. So I got a chance to see what the campus was going to look like, met the dean of the business school, and had a chance to see what it would look like not on a Friday or Saturday. Yeah. And I think those are the things that kind of resonated with me. But, both of my parents are HBCU grads. They went to Albany State, so I can get that feeling of what you said. Yes. Homecoming for me, they didn't have to put it on my calendar. I knew when it was. Right. Yes. And just some of those experiences that we learn. And I think that's where we got to get back to in our communities. Let's expose our kids as much as possible. Absolutely. And make sure that they see those areas where they can advance and get those dual degrees, get the masters, get the PhDs and all those things, because what we're dealing with right now is a totally different environment. Yes. And if we don't prepare our kids, they're going to get left behind. So when you got to Southern, or when you were in high school, did you do anything from a journalism standpoint, or did you do any writing? Were you on the school paper at that time?
I was not, but was close to people that did it, because fortunately I was playing ball then, so we didn't actually have, it's crazy to think we didn't have a regular student paper at that time, but always follow what was going on within our district and within the area and the state. So the newspaper was always a part of my life growing up, even though I wasn't writing at the time per se. I grew up, because we're going to date ourselves here. There used to be something called Agate, which the box scores used to run the paper. You know what that is. Yeah. So I grew up writing those baseball box scores growing up. So writing was always a part of my upbringing, even though it wasn't formal. So being around it and talking and getting an understanding of the writers that would cover our high school really helped me to say, okay, let me see how they wrote about our team the next day, and really start to shape my philosophy on how to cover sports when my time came.
I think that's something that is it's challenging for me, because I grew up with the paper. I'm talking about, I can remember
the
my
physical
father,
paper. Yes.
We had them delivered on Sunday. He and I would go down and get the Atlanta Constitution, and then we'd also get the Jacksonville newspaper. Okay. And we'll go through them, and and it's so tough now for me, because I'm just I like to have it. Yes. But having them online now, which is better, is more accessible. But I like those writers too that wrote back at that time, because it was more, I think, because you couldn't see the game, they had to spend more time in illuminating the game for you. Correct. Compared to now, it's more of a, since you've seen it, let me give you, something to quick hit it and get out of there. Correct. And those are the things that I do miss, and I do appreciate those PR staff like yourself that have come up through it. So when I'm reading it, I can feel like I'm there. Yeah, and it makes a difference. Yeah. It definitely makes a difference. And a lot of that, my writing was shaped from the radio guys I listened to. I know you're an SEC guy. One of the great plays in LSU history
in 1958, 1959, the punt return by Billy Cannon.
Yeah.
Well, the LSU radio announcer, play-by-play guy, was a Southern play-by-play guy, and I was growing up.
Okay.
So his descriptives really helped shape not only my writing at that time and still do, but when I fell into having to broadcast games, some of those same characteristics of trying to illuminate, paint those pictures. So that really had a holistic experience more than I really realized, because those guys were the guys. They helped to make it plain in our head, to create those pictures that you talked about, and certainly being able to read that recap was really more of a recap than not just summaries. But back then you talked about how the running back cut left went through the hole. Well, since you saw it, you may not be as descriptive now, but those things really shaped the images growing up and still do to this day.
Yeah, before we go to a break, though, I tell you the one that stood out to me was Larry Munson when he called it, when Lindsey Scott caught that pass on the 8-yard line in the Gator Bowl. And even though I watched it, I still sit back now. And when you see it, it's almost like it draws me back to when I was sitting on the couch watching that game when I was a youngster, because it resonates with you. So as we get ready to go into our commercial break, closing out the first quarter, we'll give our sponsors an opportunity to share some information with our viewers.
The Mississippi Link is an African-American female-owned newspaper with a trusted voice that is highly respected throughout the city, state, and nation. Our motto, keepers of the knowledge for people who speak the truth, since 1993. Link significantly influences the thoughts, attitudes, and buying decisions of its readers. Call us at 601-368-8481 for your advertising needs. If you would like to receive a newspaper in the mail each week, our annual subscription is only $52 per year. That is only $1 per week for you to stay informed regarding many stories that you can only get in the Mississippi Link. Sign up today at themississippiLink.com and click on Home Delivery.
Welcome back to the second quarter of the Sound of Horne Sports Show, and I have with me Mr. Duane Lewis from Jackson State, working in their public relations and sports media area. And we were talking in that first quarter about hometown, growing up. You chose Southern as an institution that you want to attend. So if you would, share with us some of your experiences as a student when you were at Southern.
Some of the things that stood out was going to games. I was not in student media as soon as I got into college, so never missed a home game with football. Usually went to the Saturday basketball games, and just the experiences of what that felt like in terms of student gate is, open 2 hours before, and you get there at 3:30, and there's 500 kids in line already. Just to be a part of what game days felt like as a student and really as a freshman, and the pride that the different experience now being a Southern student, from having grown up going to it with family, now really being entrenched in the blue and gold, it felt different. And the home games felt like, every game felt like homecoming. And the experiences of seeing football, band, cheerleaders, it really was a communal experience every single time. And even my first 2 years, program was not winning. It was not a winning program what it became to be, but it didn't matter. The experience of that as a student, going to games and just walking to class, seeing 8,000-9,000 other students trying to attain the same goal in life. I think we really came to inspire each other within the classroom aspect of it. And that encouragement was really good, and just really started to foster, man, we can do this with everyone attained in life. We can do this, and we can do this from here at Southern.
I've had an opportunity to meet a number of Southern grads. In fact, my former pastor in Tallahassee, his wife is a Southern grad. In fact, their son is going down there. I reached out to House to see if House can maybe help him get into assisting. But it's amazing, just the Southern mystique. It's just, it resonates.
It does.
And when I working at Alcorn and going down there just to go over the bridge, and then when you come over that bridge, it's like you're in a totally different world. So as a student, when you were moving into working in athletic or working athletics, what led you from being a student to move into getting into that into working with the athletic department?
It took me about a year or two to figure out what I really wanted to do career-wise. I knew I was going to major in mass comm, but didn't know what area exactly. And while my path was broadcast journalism, the student paper was very active at Southern. Mm-hmm. Southern Digest was very active, and we didn't have the radio TV component consistently at Southern at that time from a mass communication department standpoint. Mm-hmm. So getting in on the athletic department side really was a new way for me in terms of understanding there are people in the role I do now, Rodney Lockett, who's the SID, understanding really what that role meant and their role in coordinating interviews with coaches, players, things of that nature. But then I always enjoyed math. I always enjoyed the numbers and the stats of it. So even transitioning to that, it really felt like home and really felt comfortable because it took me back to growing up. Okay. And reading the box scores with my great-grandfather and reading the newspaper and all those elements. So being a part of it really expanded what I was doing. And at the same time, I was able to get on as a part-time stringer for the Baton Rouge Advocate, covering high school games on Friday. So the combination of those two things really gave me a phenomenal experience covering Southern, covering high schools, a lot of schools that I grew up with and grew up around. And it just really... it was like putting a hand to the glove. It just felt really comfortable.
Well, no, there are very few people that, and I tell people this, I worked, there are very few people that find a career that they enjoy working in. Yeah. I worked in one for 8 years and was very good at it. But then when I found my wheelhouse and got in athletics, I should have done it when I was in school. Right. Didn't think about it. But I think it's when you take a look and see where you are now, just listening to you with your great-grandfather, the numbers that you went through, you're good at what you're doing because you've been doing it almost your whole life.
Correct.
And I think those are the things that we have to find that fulfill us, things that we can do naturally. Yeah. And so when you were there, let's talk about some of the coaches the iconic coaches and athletic directors that you were involved with, and maybe just share a few stories if you feel comfortable with just kind of doing a walk down memory lane with them.
I tell you what, probably the most accomplished athlete during that time was Aeneas Williams. Okay. He was a senior when I was a freshman and was just a class guy even at that stage in his life. He was a guy that everyone in the whole campus respected by the way he played, the way he carried himself, the way he competed. And when he got drafted, it was just a phenomenal thing for the whole campus. And he went on, obviously, to a Hall of Fame career with the Rams and with the Cardinals. He stood out. But Marino Chasm, the godfather who passed on, I think, last year or so, was the athletic director. And we had larger-than-life coaches not only on campus but within the conference as well. So with Coach Chasm as the athletic director at that time, he brought in Pete Richardson, which flipped the success rate for Southern football going forward. But the great Ben Jobe, basketball, phenomenal coach, amazing career, coached in Africa. He had just this amazing path to how he got to Southern. Those guys were large in life to us, even as students, and covering them for the student paper. Roger Cato in baseball, who's now in the College Baseball Hall of Fame, who's still with us. We revered having the opportunity to talk to coaches and men of that stature that really, like, it's hard to not repeat large in life. That's who they were. And so now, we talked about prior to coming on, just going to Swag Media Day. I remember going back then, it used to be a tour. And they would go to different cities. So we would have conversation with Eddie Robinson, with W.C. Gordon, with Houston Markham, legends of our sport and our conference that we were just in awe of. When you sit down and talk to them, they were just human like us, but they enjoyed talking about their schools, talking about the conference, and that really stood out, the pride that they had in their universities. And they could tell some stories now. Oh, yeah. They could tell some stories, and that was always me the best part of going to media today was seeing the coaches around the league talk about their teams, but the stories that they would, never quite could decipher if they were real stories. They were just tales of legend. I can't say them on air, but they're highly entertaining, and they stay with me to this day.
Well, when we talked prior to coming on, it's amazing how athletics is full circle. Yes. Back in 81, 82, Ben Jobe recruited me when he was at Georgia Tech. Right. Man, great guy. Yes. I call him a Renaissance man. Yes. It was just something about his persona. Yeah. That great guy. He didn't speak loud. No. But just you knew he had it. And then working at Alcorn and getting a chance to meet Coach Castleman, he was just just a great guy. Yes. And soft spoken. Yeah. But
off the field.
Off the field.
Coaching now.
Yeah, a little different.
A little different.
But just to have and be around and had a chance to meet Coach Kadar as well, and just to see what he's done in baseball, not only for Southern, not only for the SWAC, yes, but for college baseball. So to be around those folks and then for you to be nurtured as you're growing in your experiences, I can imagine it had to be just something it's easy to write when you're writing for people and with people that have the demeanors and the personality they have.
Correct. Yeah. So much that was learned that you can't get in a textbook. Yeah. That you can't really take a class where you have to go sit at the foot of these greats and just listen and take it all in. And it was an unbelievable experience.
So as you're going through, and we talked a little bit about it, how do you feel that experience prepared you to propel you into the different opportunities you've had?
That was really the foundation. Having a chance to cover Bayou Classics, and I mentioned interviewing Coach Robinson after the game, Coach A. Robinson. I'm 19, 20, 21 years old. Like he's that guy. He is the standard for coaching in college football and college athletics for what he did and how he did it. He always talked about 57 years coaching, one job, one wife. Yeah. And just that the poise that he carried around. I was able to see a photo from a Grambling media guy from the early 90s, from a sideline shot, and he called it the Grambling Ready Sheet. I still use that terminology. I use it. I call it Ready Sheet. When I get my coaches ready for interviews, I call it a Ready Sheet from what I saw him do. Even 30 years later, it still resonates with me, the preparation that it took for him to win more than 400 games and make Grambling what it became, despite the challenges of resources, geography, things of that nature. We talked about with Coach Joe, recruiting you, and where he took Southern to not only to winning the tournament game in 93, but also that same night, Jackson State men won in the NIT at UConn, one of probably the best day in SWAC basketball history. We were guys that were making history and didn't realize at that point how significant that experience, being 18, 19, 20, was going to resonate for me now, being 50 years old. Invaluable to just sit around them and the impact that it had, and it prepared me for everything. If I can interview Marino Chasm, Eddie Robinson, a Ben Jobe, a Roger Kadar, I can interview a Marshall Falk, a Torrey Holt, Aeneas Williams, because they're one of us.
Now, didn't John McClendon coach?
I believe that he did. Somewhere in the early going, he really sat essentially at the foot of the master in terms of the sport.
And I think that's how excellence repeats itself.
Yes.
And when you think about what he did, basically, he took McClendon's footprint and took it to another level.
Yes.
And when you take a look at professional basketball now, professional basketball is being played how Ben Jobe instilled it down there at Southern.
Correct.
And that's the amazing thing where, you have a John McClendon who learned from Fog Allen.
Yes.
It's amazing how when you are put yourself in a position to learn and grow, how you can take it to another level. And like I said, I will always just remember Coach Jobe just for when he came to my house and when he was at Tech, and just how he was the kind of person that you wanted to be around. Yeah. You really did.
Got a chance to see him in the early 2010 decade. He was a regional scout for the Knicks.
Okay.
And he came to Alabama State to scout a young man from Prairie View, still class personified, same demeanor, same well-dressed, well-spoken, soft-spoken, but still had that keen eye for talent.
And I had a chance to, I think I was at A&M then, Florida A&M, when we had a chance to visit. And those are the things that I think as athletic administrators and coaches, 15, 20 years after we're done, we should hope that the fans talk about us like that.
Yes.
That they remember us that way. And I think those are some of the things that we're kind of missing out on.
Absolutely.
We're kind of missing out on because it's gotten too commercial.
Yeah. But still time.
Yeah,
gonna hold out hope.
Yeah, if they say if you got another day to live, you got another day to try.
Absolutely, absolutely.
So when you graduated from Southern, what was your first job?
Wow, the first job out of Southern. It took about 2 years to get a full-time job. And you never know about connections and people watching the work that you do. So Lonzo Hardy, who became athletic director, was the direct communications at the SWAC in New Orleans. I was covering, obviously, Southern for the Southern Digest, and I started as a part-timer with the Baton Rouge Advocate covering high school games. And what I was doing got noticed. And as I was getting ready to graduate, I think it was 2 months before graduating in '95, and Dallas Cowboys looking for a PR intern. My longtime mentor, your frat brother Tony Wiley, was in communications with Dallas Cowboys at that time before he went on to Houston Oilers, Tennessee Titans, Washington football team as vice president. Cowboys looking for another HBCU intern. Tony done an outstanding job. Lonnie Wesley, who went to Alabama State and later worked here at Jackson State under the great Sam Jefferson, had done a great job. And that opportunity, I had a chance to be a camp intern 2 months out of college with the Dallas Cowboys. And that spurred me on to, okay, maybe at the pro level, this can be a thing. That was the first significant opportunity immediately right out of college. And then for the next 2 years, I actually wrote for the Advocate, covering high school games, became a secondary person on the Southern beat, and ended up getting back in grad school for a short time. So that was the kind of the initial 2-year window right out of college. And it was a phenomenal experience to, one, have a chance to go to the Cowboys for that month and see how the pro side of it lives. And that helped make me a better writer when it came back to covering high school and covering Southern.
Who was with the Cowboys when you were there? Who were some of the players?
That was the year after they had just lost to San Francisco. So they had repeated the 2 years prior. They lost to the 49ers in the NFC Championship game. I was in training camp, and my internship ended right before they signed Dion. Okay. So that was that same year. Okay. And they were interesting enough in Austin, Texas, where I ended up working prior to coming here. But they were trying to get back, and that was going to be Switzer's second year as head coach with Troy and Emmett and Michael. They were still in their prime doing it. So that was that year. Prior to him, literally, I think a week or two after I left, they signed Dion to a long-term deal with the Cowboys.
So quickly, before we go in the second quarter, what are the differences that you saw at that time between a pro practice and a college practice?
The tempo. The tempo, because even at that time we had guys in camp, but the tempo of it was much faster. I think we're seeing more colleges doing that now because more of the no huddle up tempo play is now a staple in college athletics. It was not in college football 30 years ago. Tempo of practice, the intensity and the focus of it was really at a professional level, which is what you would expect going forward. But the size of the athletes, the speed they played with continuously evolved. At that point, it was unbelievable to see it up close and personal.
Okay. Well, we're going to end the second quarter with Duane Lewis, and we're going to go ahead and give our sponsors an opportunity to share some information with our viewers, and we'll be right back. Welcome back to the third quarter of the Sound of Horne Sports Show, and I'm here with Duane Lewis, and we have gone from Plaquemine, Louisiana to Baton Rouge.
Yes.
In Baton Rouge, we've gone on to Scotlandville, and gone over to Southern. We've been to Dallas. Now what I want to kind of do is talk about your time with the St. Louis Rams. If you would, I know that's a blessing to have that opportunity to work with them, but just kind of talk about that experience working with them.
The blessing was everything I had done to that point prepared me for what I even know was an opportunity. I could not have dreamed that big when all this started growing up. And so after the Cowboys internship in 95 for the summer, I got a chance to go and do an internship with the Rams in summer of 96. At the time, they were in their second year in St. Louis, just going to move into the facility, but had camp up at Macomb, Illinois, in Western Illinois University. So the unique thing about Western is that this same Highway 61 take you all the way to Macomb, Illinois, and up to Wisconsin. So phenomenal experience there, and that really kind of scratched the itch for it. And fortunately, when they had an opportunity, they had an opening in the spring of 97. It was a tough decision because I was in my second semester of graduate school. So had to get mom's blessing to leave school. Fortunately, I did finally go back and finish 2 years ago. But having the opportunity to join the Rams in 97 was a tremendous blessing at 25 years old. And having the chance to do that. And really they were trying to find their footing in St. Louis, but they had not been a winning program really in that entire decade. Last winning season had been 89. And so we get to the season in 97, and it was Dick Vermeil's first year. And we're trying to find our footing, and we made some moves that paid off later. We made some trades around the draft and drafted Orlando Pace, the number one pick in 97. And so the energy started coming back into the city. Tremendous opportunity. Rick Smith, who I owe an invaluable debt of gratitude to, gave me the opportunity to be a young PR assistant at 25 years old, and having the chance, because this was prior to Kurt Warner, this is prior to Marshall Faulk. Ozzie Bruce was our superstar.
Okay. Remember Bruce.
Who ended up finishing his collegiate career at Memphis, right up the street. Memphis State back then. And he was the guy that, he was our really one known superstar on that team, but we weren't winning. So back then, if you weren't good, you didn't have night games and primetime games. So we kind of struggled our first 2 years, but started to turn around prior to 99. We made the trade for Marshall Faulk, which allowed us to draft Torrey Holt. And then the unfortunate circumstance, Trent Green gets his knee blown out in the third preseason game. And this guy named Kurt Warner steps in, and we go from 4-12 to world champions in 1 year. And the success of that, they love you when you win. And from game 4 on, we were that team in the league the entire year. So we're having ESPN, CBS, and Fox. Everybody's coming every week to talk to our players, and it was a phenomenal experience because you want to win, but until you've won, you don't know what that feels like. And so it was great to really see and start to become on a first name basis with Pam Oliver, who was the preeminent reporter at that time and still is in my mind.
And a FAMU alum.
Absolutely, HBCU alum. So she was the lead silent reporter for Fox and came in to do a number of those features that Fox had the NFC package at that time. So tremendous experience and opportunity. In that, I think as an organization, we grew together because it had been 8-9 years, and we had players in their second and third year that were having phenomenal seasons. We grew together and had the opportunity. The unfortunate side of it, in winning the Super Bowl, we knocked out Denny Green and the Vikings. We knocked out Tony Dungy and the Buccaneers, and then Steve McNair in the Super Bowl. But phenomenal experience, and once you win it, you never forget that feeling. Then you spend a lifetime chasing it, and they never won the Super Bowl again. We went back 2 years later, but didn't win again until this past February.
I've seen Dick Vermeil's passion. He was a heck of a color analyst. He really was. How was he away from the cameras, just in the facility? How was he?
The passion is real. Mm-hmm. The passion is real. To his credit, he adjusted and adapted. Mm-hmm. And I'm excited for him to get his due. He'll go into the Hall of Fame next week in Canton. All he knew were 3-hour practices from his time with the Eagles. They got into to the Super Bowl. But the business side of the league had changed where the salaries were greater. So guys came in to work out during the offseason where before they were insurance salesmen, they were car salesmen. You needed 6 weeks of camp and 6 preseason games. To his credit, the third season he changed. He modified practices, became, I think, in some ways a bit more human. For example, that he listened in ways that maybe he had not the first 2 years because all he knew was that hard, grinding way. To his credit, he adapted. The players adapted and bought in. Same passion now. The standards of trying to be excellent did not change. And he had a mantra put on the wall that the players on the second floor, even where the administrators went by, said championships are won on a daily basis. And they really are. At the player entrance, and everybody thought he was foolish for doing this in 97. Again, so we're talking about that point, I think it was 7 straight losing seasons, had never won the Super Bowl. He had a large photo of the Lombardi Trophy at the player entrance. So every time player walked in or left, you had to walk by that trophy. He was planting seeds that didn't bear harvest until 3 years later, but he was planting seeds in 97 that came to roost in 2000. I think the only regret he had was he retired right after the Super Bowl, like literally 2 days after. And I think had he stayed or taken some time away from him and then kind of recharged and come back, we would have won more because his hand was just very steady in what we need. Let the offensive coordinators do his thing, and Mike Martz, our defense coordinators with John Bunting, Peter Johnson, let them do their thing. But he was that calming influence to kind of, he always had his feet on the ground. He could rally people. He could make you believe in it. And we all did in 99. It was a magical run. And I'm honored and excited that he gets his due in the Pro Football Hall of Fame.
So when you were with the Rams, did you do any radio then, or was just basically more the
just all the PR. Just all the PR. But again, it was we had national media in every week. This is before the technology that we have today. So if you wanted the story, you had to come in. So every Wednesday, it'd be 50, 60 media in our media room, most local, but we'd have 30 to 40 local. We've had 20 national writers or networks in coming to get the story. And every Friday would be the production meetings. We'd meet with the network talent that would come in and do the games. And we talked about you had to be good to be on prime time. So in 99, we had no night games because we were 4-12 the year before. So every kickoff, and this is before flex scheduling, every game was at noon, except for when we went to San Francisco, and there was a 3:00 Central Time game. All the other 15 games were noon kickoffs, and this prior to Seattle getting to the West and some of the divisional realignments. And it was an unbelievable experience because we talked about the organization growing, we saw players grow, but the goal was still the goal because we still hadn't won it yet. And so Coach Vermeil was able to navigate us, the entire organization, through what the playoffs were going to mean and then what it meant at that time and keeping the guys focused on what it was going to take to win a Super Bowl because he had lost his previous appearance against the Raiders back in '80. So, and it took everything. It came down to literally the last play of the game. Mike Jones, Missouri guy from Kansas City, made the tackle at the 1-yard line to keep Kevin Dyson out of the end zone on the last play of the game. It took all of that effort to come down to one play to win it, but that's that margin, and he was the perfect captain for that ship at that time.
Well, the thing that from an outsider looking in, we saw the emergence of Kurt Warner. What was it like when you were handling the PR before he became a starter and then after he became a starter? How did that evolve as far as for just the coverage and the demand for him? The
amazing thing with Kurt, and it's a phenomenal story. If you haven't seen this movie, I recommend it. It's a great family movie about faith and triumph. And he overcame a lot in his career and just needed the opportunity to get on the field. He was with us in '98. And He was our scout team player of the year. The third quarterback at that time would run the opposing team's offense for that week. He played the last 11 plays of our season in 98. Nothing really stood out at that time. I could not have told you at the end of 98, going into 99, that he was going to be what he became, because we had signed Trent Green to be that guy. What I will tell you is that the mental test that Mike Martz, the offense coordinator, took Kurt through was not anything that we could broadcast. He challenged him. He gave him that bull junk, as Coach Sanders would say, as Coach Prime would say, to test how mentally tough he was in case he needed to play. And unfortunately, the injury to Trent gave Kurt his opportunity. I think at the time, Kurt was 27 years old. We didn't know a lot about him. And the first game was actually against Baltimore, who won the Super Bowl the following year with Ray Lewis, Ed Reed, and those guys. And he throws 3 touchdown passes, and we win 27-10. And from there, it took off. But like the NFL and pro sports, you've been around it. Can you do it again? So the next week, we were so bad in 98. We had our bye week in 99 was week 2. We played one game and had a bye, and then had the other 15 in a row. So
somebody didn't like the Rams.
We were turning last place the year before, so we play Atlanta, who was coming off a Super Bowl appearance the year before. He throws 3 touchdown passes again. We go to Cincinnati. He throws 3 touchdown passes again. So now we're 3-0. He's got 9 TD passes in 3 weeks. And then it's the big bad 49ers. And I say that from a standpoint, we had lost 17 straight to them. And it wasn't all Montana and Rice and Young. We lost to Elvis Gerbach at quarterback. We lost to Jim Druckenmiller at quarterback. Garcia at one of those times. Ken Norton Jr. punching the bag in Busch Stadium because they were still dealing. All those things happened in that 17-game losing streak. And this was going to be the litmus test. We throws 3 touchdown passes in the first quarter. He throws 5 for the game. We break the streak. Great Bill Walsh comes in and tells Coach Emil in his press conference that we're going all the way. And from that point on, and literally was a cover the next week or two on Sports Illustrated, who is this guy? He was unflappable, tremendous family support, one of the best people I've ever met, because he didn't change. He kept working hard, kept doing all the things that got him to that point, and he really carried us because everyone knew about Marshall Faulk. So they keyed the run to make him beat them.
Yeah,
and he did.
And they beat him.
41 touchdown passes, Super Bowl MVP, league MVP. And so managing it became who's coming when. And can we do some of this on Wednesday and some of this on Friday? And really the Wednesday and Friday were the heavy days of the week in terms of a PR standpoint with managing all that coming in. From the San Francisco game on, it was unbelievable for the next 3 years.
Well, I hadn't watched the movie, but I'm going to watch it because I think that it's something that a lot of times people don't realize. Kurt Warner, you can look in his eyes and tell how intense he is.
Yeah.
Now, Ray Lewis, you had to look at his body language.
Yeah.
Because when Ray Lewis came out that year, they won the Super Bowl and did his little dance in his zone.
Yes.
I said, I don't know who they're playing, but they're finna kill him.
Right.
But when you look at Kurt Warner, you can see a calmness, not a cockiness.
No.
Very confident.
Right.
And in quarterbacks, if you don't have that ball happens to get out of your hand just a little late.
Yes.
But then he has some heck of a weapons too.
He did.
Which to me, really made a big difference. So right now, as we get ready to end this third quarter, we're gonna leave St. Louis and we're gonna travel a little bit more down in the southeast. But we're gonna give our sponsors an opportunity and a chance to share some information with our viewers.
Advertise on WeBelieve.global, a brand new digital media platform. Share your brand with our audience on our many global live stream TV broadcasts and over the radio. For more info, visit WeBelieve.global or call 800-492-5186, option 1.
Welcome back to the fourth quarter of the Sound the Horne Sports Show, and we're going to close it out strong with my good friend Duane Lewis. And we've had a lot of good information to share, and that's what I like our viewers to hear, some of behind the scenes or what goes on with activities that we see, but we really don't get a good understanding of those individuals and how those things really, transpire. And I appreciate you giving that information. So we leave St. Louis, and we get a chance to go down to work in the Allstate Sugar Bowl.
Yeah.
How was that experience?
Amazing from the standpoint of being from Louisiana. The Sugar Bowl is everything.
Yeah.
And Louisiana Superdome is everything. Mm-hmm. And we had because that was in the early years of double hosting. Yeah. So we had the Sugar Bowl on the 1st. We had National Championship game, I think it was on the 5th or 6th. And so 2 big games in a week span was phenomenal for the city 2 years after Katrina.
Yeah. Oh, that was big.
So it was big to show that New Orleans was back, open for business, and having LSU in the game that won it made it a little bit extra special to have that experience. And that was my first foray into collegiate athletics, and that's where this next chapter, if you will, began.
Mm-hmm. Well, when you take a look at it, and a lot, I've worked in college athletics for over 25 years. You've had that opportunity to work in collegiate athletics, period. People just don't realize what it takes to put an event on.
Yes.
So if you would, maybe just kind of talk about from the standpoint of your role with the Sugar Bowl, and then turn around with the championship game, kind of give us a little overview of how that transpired.
Well, we're tracking everything throughout the season because you don't know how it's going to play out. Because the Sugar Bowl is one aspect. Because then this was pre college football playoff. At that time, the matchup was 1 versus 2. Mm-hmm. That's all it was. It wasn't a 14 playoff as we know today. So we're tracking the SEC champ had automatic bid unless you were 1 seed. You picked as 1 or 2 seed for the championship game. So we're tracking all year what teams could be not only in the Sugar Bowl but in the national championship game. Mm-hmm. And Georgia ended up being in the Sugar Bowl against Hawaii. So Hawaii, I think, was in the WAC at that time. Mm-hmm. They played Louisiana Tech week 2, got a chance to go and meet some of their personnel because they were on our radar. They were predicted to be one of those teams that could be in the mix for a bowl berth at the BCS level. Mm-hmm. They ended up going 12-0, and they got the berth. So, but the tracking of that, and then it was 2 different sets of media credentials, 2 different seating arrangements, different hotels that our operations team had to go through in terms of restaurants, practice facilities. We had to get Tulane involved, the Saints involved in terms of practices, security for the teams, the escorts for practice, meals, games. It really is a big production, but instead of people think about the game, it's really the entire week. Mm-hmm. So every aspect, think of a game day here at the Vet, is 5-6 days of that because every movement you want them to have, you don't want anything to take away from their preparation for the game. Mm-hmm. And certainly from a bowl standpoint, we want to make sure that all those things are in place. So when they show up, everybody's where they need to be. Locker rooms are clean, you walk out in the field, lights are on, whatever you need for practice, your prep, your meals, your training. And all of December really was that because every team had their own nuance of what they needed. Mm-hmm. So phenomenal experience that, again, not even realizing how much that was going to be important for me later in my career, seeing the behind the scenes of that, another area that paid off beyond what I could have even imagined.
And I think that's what a lot of people don't realize, you just don't show up the day of the game. Basically, what has been done, you're just making sure that it all goes well because you've had to put so much energy into it, and I understand, and I think sometimes my wife gets a little challenged with me because in my mind I'm always assessing. So I might just get a ticket to a game, but it took us too long to get parked. The concession price is too high. I don't like that attitude of the ticket taker.
Yes.
But you have to look at those things if you want to put a good program on. So
absolutely.
So you migrated from working with the Sugar Bowl to moving to the SWAC.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about your experiences with the SWAC.
It was another kind of full circle moment. Mm-hmm. I did not get the internship with the SWAC my senior year in college only because they thought it was going to be too much. I was willing to drive 1.5 hours to New Orleans 3 days a week. Mm-hmm. So being there was a great honor to be the person telling the story for the league. And some of these giants that I talked about growing up and idolizing, now I got to do it from the league office perspective. And back then, Jackson was in that hunt with Coach Comagee, Grambling with Coach Broadway were dominant in football. That was when Prairie View emerged in women's basketball under Cynthia Cooper. That was kind of the beginning of their run on the women's side. So tremendous honor to be in Birmingham to tell it from that perspective. We're trying to amplify all 10 teams and legacies they all brought in, and that was a phenomenal experience. Again, because everything that I'd been through got me ready for that moment as well.
Mm-hmm. What would be probably the most memorable event for you when you worked at the SWAC?
Most memorable event, I would say the championship luncheon in 2009. It was because we had the Hall of Fame, I think, the night before, and that was right after Steve McNair got killed, the season after that. Mm-hmm. And having his wife at the luncheon was powerful for the teams that were in it. Because that was, I think it was 2009, that was Prairie View's first championship. They were in the championship game for the first time, I think, since the 60s, since 65. Mm-hmm. But having the teams there, having our Hall of Famers there, having her standing as we honored her in memory of him was a very powerful moment, and also spoke to the strength of the SWAC, that we compete hard against each other, but we love and we hold in high regard our legends. Mm-hmm. And that moment and the ovation she got and the energy and the passion I felt in that room was tremendous. That stands out to me more than anything else during that time.
So you've worked at the SWAC. You worked at some SWAC member institutions. Mm-hmm. So when you look at the SWAC now, just as a member institution or a product of the SWAC, how do you gauge where the SWAC is right now as a conference?
This takes you back to the early 90s when I was in school. Mm-hmm. I talked about the legends who were coaching and the administrators with Dr. Frank, who was commissioner at that time, who at one point was president of the NCAA. Okay. We had legends like that in our league 30 years ago, and I think we're back to that now. With Coach Prime, with Willie Simmons, but also Eddie Robinson, who played at Alabama State. No relation to Grambling's coach, but played at Alabama State. Now he's head coach. Bubba McDowell, great player in the NFL, now coaching Prairie View. Hugh Jackson, coached in the league. Now he's at Grambling. We have men like that, and that's just in the football realm. With Dr. McClellan, who's a Jackson native, now commissioner of the league, and everything he's done to elevate this next version of the conference. When everyone else was contracting during COVID, we expanded as a conference and brought in Florida A&M and Bethune-Cookman. It's an exciting time to be affiliated with the SWAC. I think it reminds me of the 90s, but I think where he has us positioned, we have an opportunity to really redefine what we have been as a league and what we can be within the national construct of the college football and college athletics conversation.
And then with him being the chairman of men's basketball Division I tournament, that speaks volumes.
It does.
It speaks volumes.
Absolutely.
I tell people, Dr. McClellan is not nervous about leaning in.
No.
He leans in, but when he leans in, he's calculated. And I like the direction that he has the SWAC going in, because when you take a look at the realignment and everybody else losing or having their the relevancy of their conference, look at OVC. It's challenged.
Yes.
Then you take a look at the Southland, who lost to the
some schools to the WAC, I think it was.
And then they're coming back.
Right.
It's just too much inconsistency.
Yes.
But when he goes to the sponsors,
right,
he can say we're stable and we're getting stronger. And I think for black college sports, at least the conferences are doing their best. I know the MEAC is challenged right now.
Yes.
But you take a look at the SIEC, the CIAA, and some of the other conferences, there's some strength there, and we as consumers of those products, in that entertainment, we got to make sure we keep them up.
Absolutely, and bold moves that commissioner made.
Oh yeah,
we announced, I think in August, we were not going to play fall. We weren't going to play fall football in 2020, but September. I believe it was September that year, we had a spring schedule.
Yep.
He said, we're going to play a spring schedule, we're going to play a 6-game schedule, and we had a schedule in September.
Yep.
That we started building towards, that we launched in late February, early March of 21, and took advantage of the opportunity of the TV aspect. Because while I think majority of FCS was playing during the spring of 21, the FBS was not. And they created opportunities for us to be on ESPN Plus, ESPN3, and you take that and you add in the Coach Prime effect, and literally because of the viewership of the first 2 games of Jackson football online, it forced the move to linear, and the last 3 or 4 games were on TV because they were doing over 200,000 online.
Wow.
So the demand for the viewership to see, whatever reason they were tuning in, the numbers dictated the move, and that heightened, I think, what Commissioner McClellan has been able to do as a league, because fans really tuned in to spring football. Majority of the games across that 6-7 week schedule were televised, and it really amplified the vision and the brand of the conference.
Well, I wasn't going to give you too many questions about Prime, but you brought him up.
Okay.
Just talk about the Prime effect, because, when we talked about Kurt Warner and how that, I know, picked up the interest. How has it been just kind of working to navigate those requests in a time when social media is just taking off so much?
He has a great team around him with Smack Entertainment, and we work collaboratively on all of his requests. He's the 1% of the 1%.
Okay.
When you think about what he accomplished as greatest cornerback ever, I think he played 14 years, while at the same time for 9 years also played Major League Baseball. It's hard enough to master one sport. He played 2 professional sports at the same time. I think it's him and Bo Jackson in that conversation.
Yeah.
I think that it's only those 2. So from that standpoint, for me, when I understand what he was able to accomplish as an athlete, transition right into TV with CBS and the NFL Network, along with his other coaching and business interests, he understands high achievement. And what I've been able to take from him, which has challenged me to be better, is how can I be more disciplined and be more efficient to manage at a high level the way he operates at a high level. Because he's challenging all of us, not intentionally or with force, but this is his normal. That he achieves at a high level. He's very disciplined. He puts the work in. And so now that's translated into this role at Jackson State. So we manage him very carefully, but he's his own entity from a standpoint. If he has a message, he's got 2.5 million followers on Instagram. I think another 1.4, 1.5 on Twitter. When he talks, people listen. He's a brand ambassador. He's an influencer. He's a champion, but he's also very human. And what we saw in the Coach Prime documentary with the unfortunate health issues that he had last year, I think really humanized them to people. But what I tell colleagues, friends all the time, he is extremely passionate about the success and well-being of the student athletes. That is a real thing. You may see the persona, and yes, he can. You put him in front of this mic right now, he's going to turn it on. He's going to give it to you. But he's real in terms of what he wants for student athletes, not just football, but all the student athletes at Jackson State, and the success of HBCUs overall by having a pro day, but having 4 of the colleges at that pro day. Had the recent XFL showcase and having HBCU athletes at that showcase. He's big on elevating the spotlight for all HBCUs, and that Prime effect is real, and now we're going to see that more in 2022 with more games being televised by our league. There's talks and finalization of another network coming on board to amplify and broadcast conference games in addition to what ESPN is doing. That is the Prime effect, and not just for Jackson State University, but the entire HBCU culture as well. Well,
Duane, it's been great having you on, and we have been working so hard to make it happen. But I'm happy that you're there working with Ashley. Ashley is a dear friend.
Yes.
And just want to make sure that not only see him successful, you and all of my dear friends, but thanks for coming on. And we hope that everyone has a great day. And we're looking forward for you to tune in for the next Sound the Horn Sports Show. Welcome to Sound the Horn Sports Show. I'm so excited to host this groundbreaking program that will broaden the Jackson sports scene's awareness regionally and nationally. My goal is to highlight sports in Jackson, the state of Mississippi, and nationally by utilizing my 25 years of Division I athletic administration knowledge, and my guests will be experienced leaders in sports. The guests on the show will share a behind-the-scenes, unique, and informative glance of the world of sports. Please join me every Monday and Friday from 9 a.m. to 10 a.m.